Minute 28 of Groundhog Day has us in the chair. Let's just do this whole fucking sentence again. Of course, if I have minimal editing, you just heard me screw that up and swear and talk about it. And that's might be okay.
Well, it's Groundhog Day. Again. And that must mean that I am Professor Robert E.G. Black. And this is the Groundhog Day Project.
It's one of those infinite time loop situations you might have heard about.
It's a thing where the same day keeps happening?
Time.
I wake up every day right here, right in Punxsutawney, and it's always February 2nd.
The last revision is what counts, apparently.
Minute 28 has us inside the Cherry Street with Phil and Rita. Additionally, before I get into the dialogue and the conversation, I would point out that in the background we can see Ralph and Gus are there, Nancy is there. We see Kenny the waiter, Alice the waitress. Over at the booth at the end, you'll see the old man in the red hat, who I pointed out several episodes ago, was out at Gobbler's Knob in the crowd. Additionally, we know from later minutes that also in this room right now, to our right, just slightly behind us, are Debbie and Fred. Over by the front entrance, waiting for a table, is the woman in the long blue coat that I pointed out just a couple minutes ago. Also, a guy I will not point out until he shows up, but there is a guy who annoyed me. I should get him on the show. If I'm going to have a guest this season, it should be a guy who annoyed me. He and the woman he's with, although I think she's not with him in this when we see him in the diner later. Technically, he's waiting there, probably not while they're filming this scene, but he is there in the reality of this moment. He's someone who dances in front of the camera at the banquet and always bugged me because it felt like it was less the director said someone go in the foreground and more like they chose to go in the foreground just to get on camera. Which maybe that isn't true. I'll have to look up his name and share it.
Jumping in from editing because his name is Daniel Riggs. He is listed in the cast on IMDb as Bachelor, uncredited. Because he is the second Bachelor to head for the stage, even though he's not the second one we see. What's he been in? Let's see. 5 credits. Secondhand Hope in 2013. The Weatherman as Traveling Man, uncredited, in 2005. The Animal as Bar Patron, uncredited, in 2001. Groundhog Day as Bachelor, uncredited, in 1993. And Union Worker, uncredited, in Hoffa, 1992. So he's basically an extra. Secondhand Hope is something he wrote. Interesting. He's a co-writer on that. What is that? Parallel storylines depicting 2 couples and their life experiences. We follow one couple going through the struggles they encounter with a history of infertility, while the other story reveals a woman struggling to find the effort to fight to keep her relationship from failing. The 2 stories cross paths at the end. The woman struggling to find the fight finds inspiration in seeing how the other couple deals with life and adversity. He is co-writer on this. It is a short, 10 minutes long, directed and co-written by William DeMarco. And Daniel Riggs stars in it. Okay, cool. So Daniel Riggs, if you happen to hear this episode, find me on social media. Robert E.G. Black is me, or Groundhog Day Project, wherever you should be able to find it. And I'll get you on a special episode. Talk about the experience of having to stand around and wait in the diner and dance, probably, I'm guessing, all day at that banquet scene. Yeah.
Talk about your experience, because he was there for the diner, he was there for the banquet, which means he's probably a local, he's an extra in multiple locations, so it means he was involved over a bit of time. I don't know how the exact shooting schedule. Who else is here? Behind us. As I said, Phil's table is not in the corner. There's a table behind us in the corner. There is parents and 2 boys. One of those boys is in a deleted scene, unavailable deleted scene, though I do have a still from it. It is a scene that comes right out of Ruben's original script, I believe, where he and another boy and a girl, for the purposes of the production, they used the girl who is the piano student, and they used the boy who falls out of the tree. And right now at the table behind us is the other boy in this scene. And in that deleted scene, at some point, Phil is counting the cracks on the sidewalk because basically he's gotten so bored one day that that's what he's doing. And these three kids come and just keep interrupting him and messing with him. And I believe that is straight out of Danny Rubin's original and survives into a revision, at least one of the revisions, and I guess in the shooting script. So maybe it went all the way through.
The scene in question, as it appears in Rubin's original. Exterior, sidewalk, day. Phil in pajamas and overcoat stands on the sidewalk, looking down at his feet. Phil, voiceover. I was clearly losing it. Phil, 2,671. Phil takes a large step forward onto the next crack in the sidewalk. Phil, 2,672. Another step. Phil, 2,673. Three neighborhood kids are running around playing. They notice Phil and watch him walking along. Phil, 2,674. Phil and kids take a step. Phil, 2,675. Phil and the kids take a step. Phil, 2,000. Joey, 5,800,000. Phil, 600. Mike and Sue, 90, 20, 4, 6, 50. Phil, 2,400. Joey, Mike, and Sue, 2, 8, 9, 46, etc. Phil stops and looks up. He has lost his place. His lip curls up like an animal's. He turns with slow anger to the kids. They run away, screaming with glee. A cop comes up to Phil. Cop, can I help you, buddy? Phil doesn't even respond. Cop, maybe you want to button up your coat? It's cold out here. Phil doesn't move. Cop, you got a name? Phil looks at the cop. Phil. Cop, Phil, like the groundhog? Phil turns to the cop like a rabid dog ready to strike. Phil, yeah, like the... Phil stops as if struck. Phil, groundhog. Phil, voiceover. It was so obvious to everyone else. Why hadn't I seen it before? Cop, hey, Phil, you okay? Phil, voiceover. I am the groundhog, and he is me. I am Punxsutawney Phil, and forever shall my fate be linked to his. Whatever happens to him happens to me. I finally saw a way out of this cruel existence. Cut to interior gun store day. And then we get a whole sequence of him trying to, well, I think he succeeds. Him gunning down the groundhog. A sequence they ended up removing from the script because of Bill Murray, because he had just spent Caddyshack trying to kill a rodent and they didn't want to repeat that.
Ultimately, not only did they not include the scene in the movie, they didn't include the scene on the DVD. But they definitely did film it because there's a still shot, a wide shot of them filming it with the three kids following Phil. And right now, that one kid is behind us at a table with his family. So, the Tip Top. Did I say Cherry Street at the beginning of this? I'm going to have to start all over. Minute 28 has us inside the Tip Top Cafe. You fucking amateur. Me, the fucking amateur. I'm not an amateur. Well, no, I'm not really getting paid. I do have a Patreon. I think it's mentioned in the outro at the end of every episode. There's no freebies on there or extra stuff. Well, there is extra stuff, but not a lot because I stopped recording things for my Patreon a while ago. I should put some stuff on there. Earn your cash. But if you just throw me $1 a month, cool. You help pay for this show to exist. Or my future shows. Because obviously after season 3 is done, I might never do this show again. Who knows? Or there might be a season 4 sometime. But, minute 28. Let's start again. Minute 28. Now let's start all the way back. Well, it's Groundhog Day. Again. And that must mean the minute 28 has us at the Tip Top Cafe. Phil is with Rita. Rita is upset with Phil, but she is still polite to the locals because at the end of the previous minute, Doris said, "More coffee, hun?" And Rita says, "No thanks, just the check, please." And so sweet, so nice. She says, "These sticky puns are just heaven." And Doris says, "Aren't they?" But Rita has already turned her head to look at Phil, and you can see the tone shift. It is actually a great little acting beat. that is in this wide shot because, Harold Ramis loves some wide shots or some what's called a two shot where we get two people. This we have three technically, but he's giving us that shot that just encompasses everyone in the scene and not giving us a close-up. A close-up of this turn would be great because she is smiling and cheery and sweet looking at Doris. And then before Doris has even finished her answer, Rita has turned her head to Phil and looks upset. Like, dude, it's her first producer job on location. And dude just didn't do his job, which puts her on the spot because she failed because he chose to fail. The dialogue continues. It is at this moment... Oh, wait. Before the dialogue continues, it is at this moment... This episode's a mess, right? Sorry, my students took a while getting out of the classroom today, and so I was getting ready to record even before they all left. And then finally they left, and one already interrupted, so I had to pause, try to remember where I was in mid-sentence. Apologies, but that is life. Things get in your way, things interrupt. Here's a segue, like the sound of, I don't think we know the name of the waiter who drops the tray, but we do see him later. A waiter drops the tray. We don't see him now. He is somewhere off in the back right corner from what we are looking at, near the drink station. And he is setting down a tray that then falls. And we hear Ralph? Gus. Every time when I start in on Gus and Ralph, I have to remind myself who's who. And then I think of their scene. If we wanted to hit mailboxes, we could let Ralph drive. Ralph is the one who tries to get in and falls down, and then Gus is, I don't think I should be driving, so that means it is Gus that says this, right? Rick Dickman? Not Rick. Aren't they both named Rick? What's the other one's name? I don't know. I can't remember at the moment. I have a headache, and as I said, the room was a bit of interruptions and mess before we even get started. He says, just put that anywhere, pal. Yeah. And just put that anywhere, pal, is a line, or at least just put that anywhere, is a line I was using even before I did the blog and started obsessing about Groundhog Day. Because it is such a great line if someone drops something. Just put that anywhere. Like, what the fuck? Why are you dropping things? We're trying to live here. And, good save. There was not a good save. It fell. Okay, and now tell me why you're too sick to work, and it better be good, is what Rita tells him. And Phil says, Rita, I'm reliving the same day over and over. Groundhog Day. Today. And she says, okay, I'm waiting for the punchline. I love that she thinks it's a joke. Everything he says is not serious, so she's like, this better be going somewhere. He says, no, really, this is the third time. It's like yesterday never happened. Technically, I would point out, Phil, it is like today never happened. But, that's relative, isn't it? And she says, I am racking my brain, but I can't even begin to imagine why you'd make up something like this. I'm not making it up. I am asking you for help. Okay, what do you want me to do? I don't know. You're a producer. Come up with something. That's actually sort of reasonable, but he should have, gotten there earlier. He did try to run, which would have gotten them early enough to actually have the conversation, not about work, before they had to do the report, and then he wouldn't have maybe he would have done the report, and so she wouldn't be mad at him when he's now asking her for help. But now she's mad at him. And she says, you want my advice? I think you should get your head examined if you expect me to believe a stupid story like that, Phil. Which is this is actually good writing here. This whole scene, I love it. But pay attention to her phrasing. She's not saying, I think you should get your head examined if you believe this. She's saying he should get his head examined if he thinks she should believe him. She's saying, you're crazy if you think I'd believe it. When, even more importantly, you're crazy if you believe it. And she ends the sentence, of course, with Phil. And this is a thing that happens in Danny Rubin's original often. Every time someone says Phil's name, someone would be like, Phil? Like the Groundhog Phil? And they're all just so excited. We only get it once in the movie, but it is sold, and we get a nice close-up. And then Phil is annoyed, but has enough energy still to be sarcastic. Yeah, like the Groundhog Phil. And then we're cutting it off mid-sentence, but I'm going to give you the whole sentence, because all we get this minute is, look out. But the sentence is, look out for your shadow there, pal. And that, along with the naming thing, is straight out of Rubin's setup before he even wrote the script. Phil is named Phil because it's the name of the groundhog. If that isn't obvious. Like, no shit. But it is a deliberate choice because the groundhog is Phil's shadow, or Phil is his own shadow, depending on how you want to define it. That's why in earlier scripts, before Murray was involved, Phil goes to try to kill the groundhog. Here, he just kidnaps the groundhog and takes him with him and does kill the groundhog, but it doesn't feel like he's trying to kill the groundhog. He's just trying to take the groundhog away because he is acting as if this is science fiction when it's not. He is trying to get out of the loop and escape. And this is only the third iteration, and he's already annoyed, and this is right on theme. This is like a psychology thing. Look out for your shadow there, pal. Phil needs to look out for his shadow. What is that? That's a Jungian thing, right? Shadow. I'm not that good on Jung stuff other than vague memory of what I wrote in the blog over a decade ago. But it's kind of like the id from Freud. It is this, and if that's completely wrong comparing the two, so sorry psychology people listening to this. But Phil is being tested here by reality, the universe, God, whatever you want to believe it is, Stephanie DeCastro with her spells. And Phil has to be better. He has to earn his way back into life because this isn't the trap. I've said this before. Pittsburgh was the trap. Phil put himself in a trap, and this is the escape. But he can only escape through the repetition, through being forced to be in this place and realize that he should pay attention to his surroundings, that he should pay attention to the people around him, and he should be kind to them. He should be a better person than he is. And he doesn't become like a perfect person by the end of the film. He's still sarcastic. He's still making jokes. But they aren't as mean-spirited. They don't feel like he's lashing out of some internal pain. It's just that's who he is because years of being that. Another reason, you don't do math on the time loop. It doesn't matter. If you start to say he's in there for 1,000 years, then it makes no sense that he's still sarcastic at the end. He should be an enlightened, sort of like Buddhist paragon of humanity who is kind to everyone and says exactly what they want to hear. But no, he's still making jokes at the end of the movie. He's still Phil. But he has looked out for his shadow. He has been forced to look in the mirror. We see when he gets out of bed, what's the first thing he does in the morning? He goes into that little sink area in front of a mirror. We don't get like a lingering shot of him looking in the mirror at his face and recognizing who he is or who he thinks he is, or who he's supposed to be, or any of these iterations of Phil. But it is notable that he goes in front of a mirror first thing in the morning, throws water in his face, wakes up to his own reflection. Because that is what repetition is doing. It is reflecting Phil to Phil to Phil to Phil. And it matters that it's like the groundhog Phil. Because what is the groundhog Phil's life? Punxsutawney Phil lives in an enclosure in the library 364 days. I mean, maybe they bring him out for other events, I'm not sure. But then on February 2nd, they drag him up to Gobbler's Knob and make him... He doesn't even do much. They just pull him out and pretend to talk to him, and then they read a scroll. It's not a fulfilling life, but neither really was Phil Connor's life in Pittsburgh. He knows his job isn't fulfilling for him. He's not enjoying it because he thinks he's too good for it, when he should be enjoying the job he has because it is making his life possible. But also, we don't get a clear impression in the film, but we might assume it, and in earlier versions of the script it is explicit. He's a womanizer. He's not a great guy. We've seen how he interacts with Kenny and Larry, not just Rita, who's new in his life. But Kenny and Larry, he's not nice to them. His assistant and his camera guy. This might be his first location shoot with Rita, but he's been out with Larry time and time again, for sure. But where they should be friends, Phil treats Larry like he's nobody. Because that's what he sees. The cameraman is just the help. Phil's the talent. Anyway, apologies for the beginning of this episode being a bit messy. I got it together there, got into a rant. That's all I got for minute 28. Till next time, go watch some more movies and get out of the time loop and the drudgery of your life by realizing what you're doing wrong, or maybe what the world is doing wrong to you, and find a way to fix it. Find a way to entertain yourself at least. Because the world right now, I'm recording this, that is June 26th, 2025, the world's a fucking mess. And we all could use something better in our lives. Good luck. Watch some movies, entertain yourself, read some books, watch some TV, listen to music, spend time with friends and loved ones, whatever you can do.
Knew you were gonna say that.
This has been a production of Lemming Drops Studio. You can find links to more at lemmingdrops.com or join the Facebook group Lemming Drops Studio Tour. Also, you can support all my shows at patreon.com/lemmingdrops.
What is wrong in the end which never comes? Or which comes again and again, laughing. Like waves.
Since the Big Bang set everything in motion, everything that happens in this universe has to be the way it is. Particles unfolding the way they're destined to.
How do you sleep at night? You've never seen Groundhog Day?
Yeah, you know Groundhog Day is not a documentary.
Remember when Groundhog Day was just a movie?